Okay. So this final section of the course will be test prep, since this is all about getting ready for the pen test plus exam. The pen test plus review, I guess you could think of it as a final exam, but it's not really meant to be a final exam. It's more of take it as many times as you want and understand how CompTIA throws questions at you. For the most part, it's situational, which means it's not really about memorizing questions and answers. It's more about being able to take the information that they give you and come up with the best answer that meets what they're looking for. Because you'll get sometimes some weird questions that have like 2-3 answers that are right, but you have to find the best one, and that can be tricky. You don't necessarily have all day to think about it. The test, I believe, is 2 hours long. So I put together a bunch of questions that you can review yourself. I'll be going through some of them. I know that the thing says a time limit of 30 minutes, but I'm not going to rush. If we use up the 30 minutes and we only do a few questions, then I'll just redo it again for a second run. So it's not that this session and any other sessions that we'll do from here till the end of the semester, it's not about speed. It's just about understanding how to take the test and prepare yourself for what you will see. So feel free to put in the chat at any time, any questions you have, any clarifications. We can do research. Like I said, I'm not going to rush through these questions. So you are more than welcome to hoping that you participate and not just me talk all day. And since I'm pretty much thinking, I'll show a question and then wait a little bit, I'm just going to put some background music. That way it's not just silence in here. So let's see what we got. I'm going to hit preview. So here's your first question. And I'll make it a little bigger so that it is legible. What do you think is the right answer? It is not responder. Responder doesn't do an exploit to the NetBIOS name service. Again, because we're doing this as a class, look up the 4 tools if you are not familiar with them. What does responder do? What does ARP spoof do? What does nmap do? What does burp suite do? Which one of them has a NetBIOS function, capability, flag? Again, it's not about who can answer the question the fastest. We're not racing here. We're taking our sweet time. Yes, so a Burp Suite is definitely more web application, and NetBIOS is not necessarily a web app. It's more of a local network. We already ruled out Responder. ARP Spoof is exactly as you said, it's more leaning to that specific protocol. So it leaves Nmap, and that is correct. Nmap would be the correct answer to this question. Yes, because it's a network service. That's correct. Here is a second question. Again, if you are unfamiliar, go ahead and spend some time researching these tools. Don't feel at all that you have to be the first to answer. I also hope the music isn't too loud. If the question doesn't make sense, please say so. In any cert test, you really want to find those keywords. You also want to limit your mind to the question and not to any others. Questions are usually do not tie together unless they have a common story, and that's normally said in the test. Okay, so there's 3 there, EtherCap or responder. Oh, sorry, 2. Maybe a responder. So what does EtherCap do? Do a quick Google search on what EtherCap does and what responder does. Again, we're not rushing. Any believes it's TCP dump. What does TCP dump do? Were you able to do a quick lookup on what TCP dump does, what EtherCap does, what responder does? Yes, TCP dump correctly collects network traffic. So with that in mind, does that fit the question of which could be used to impersonate network resources and collect authentication requests. So your tool has to be able to do both impersonate network resources and collect authentication requests. TCP dump does one of those two, but not both. So unfortunately, TCP dump is not the right answer. Yeah, TCP dump is kind of like a command line Wireshark. And even in that comparison, Wireshark does not impersonate network resources. It only collects packets. So Wireshark, if it was on this list, would also only do the second half of the question and not the first. EtherCap does collect, but what resources does it man in the middle? What resources does EtherCap man in the middle? Which is important to know. It's not like I'm leading you off on a tangent. It's valuable information for other questions that you may get on the test. It's good to know what they do, what these tools do. And it's these little things that will help you when you take the actual test. Because that's how I remember these things. I remember what TCP dump does, what EtherCap does. So when I see it, I can use that information to help guide me into the right answer. Well, what resources does EtherCap does it impersonate network resources? And if it does, which ones? It changes the MAC address with resources. A resource would be something like DHCP or DNS or HTTP or email. Those are OSI layer 7 stuff, whereas MAC address is OSI layer 2. So that's not the same thing. Anyone can switch or spoof their MAC address, but can they do the exact same service is a different question. So it may not be EtherCap just because of what layer in the OSI model it functions at. No, EtherCap is not short for Ethernet. I actually don't know why it's called that. I'm sure that it's on their homepage or on Wikipedia, but I do not know off the top of my head. And the good thing is I've never seen that on the test. What is the history of this tool? Some more of what can you do with it? Like this question. So we've eliminated 2 of the 4. It's not TCP dump because it only does the second half of the question. And it's not EtherCap because it doesn't function at all layers of the OSI. Doesn't function at all layers of the OSI model. Because network resources tend to be higher up, like the ones I mentioned of DNS, DHCP, email. Those are all layer 7, and EtherCap tends to live in layer 2. So that's 2 of 4. What does Medusa do, and what does Responder do? Why is it not Medusa? Do a quick little research on the Medusa tool. Is it a brute forcer? Because if that's true, then it only leaves one answer. If that's false, you're still stuck between A or B. Aha! Intended to be a speedy, massively parallel, modular login brute forcer just like Hydra. That is great. And I would highly suggest you remember that Medusa is just like Hydra. That will help you. That's a nice little thing to remember for the test. So yes. So the answer is Responder. Responder both impersonates network resources and collects authentication requests. Here's another question. Well, this is why we do these towards the end of the semester, so that you can acquaint yourself with various tools. And you understand the mentality that you need to have when you go to take the test. I'm quickly looking up to see. I believe the answer is yes. Yes, the answer is yes. So let me find the correct PDF for the current test. Okay, here you go. put this, here you go. That link that I put into the YouTube chat, it has the PDF of all the objectives, and it has the list of tools along with acronyms that will show up. So a client has scheduled a wireless pen test. Which of the following describes the scoping target? Information most likely needed before testing can begin. So for the scoping target information, what is most likely needed before testing begins? Do we most likely need the number of wireless devices owned by the client? Do we most likely need the bands and frequencies used by the client's devices? Do we most likely need the physical location and network ESSIDs? Or most likely need the preferred wireless access point vendor? So there is one vote for number 4, that we most likely need the number of wireless devices owned by the client. Or did you say it's not number 4? Okay, so there is a second guess of it most likely needed the physical location and network SSIDs. That is not the right answer. We do not most likely need to know the physical location. That is not necessary. We also do not need to know the number of devices owned by the client, because the pen test is on a wireless network, not the wireless devices, if that makes sense. In this case of this question, wireless devices would most likely mean the endpoint devices. We're not hitting those. And because it's wireless, we don't necessarily have to be in the building to do the test. We could be across the street. We could be in the parking lot. So physical location doesn't necessarily matter. So that leaves you 1 or 3. Well, we most likely do not need to know the vendor, but we do most likely need to know the bands and the frequencies used by the client's devices. We need to know which frequency, which bands are being used. Is this network a 2.4 gigahertz? Is it a 5? Is it both? We do not need to know the vendor. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, to be clear, it doesn't matter in what this question is asking, because the big most is the key feature here. Because yes, in the real world sense, knowing that we're dealing with Cisco devices, knowing that we're dealing with Aruba, knowing that we're dealing with Netgear does help us in putting together a possible payload or searching up specific CVEs. But it is more important to know what bands and frequencies are being used over what vendor is being used, because you may have a 0-day for an Aruba device, but if you don't know what frequency, what band they're on, that's useless. So most likely you need the band and frequency. And since this is running out, I'm just gonna go back to do this over again. Go over here to pen test review and hit preview. Exactly. Imagine pen testing the wrong access point because you didn't have the proper information. Okay, here's another question. Which of the following has a direct and significant impact on the budget of the security assessment? So there are two different votes here, number 1 or number 2. So we've already, I guess we've already eliminated 3 and 4. So let's just focus on the top, on 1 and 2. Which of the following has a direct and significant impact on the budget of the security assessment? So we're going to do an assessment, figure out weak points. Which one will cost more money? Does it cost more money to scope out? Or will it cost more money to figure out risk? Looks like there's 2 votes for number 2. One vote for number 1. Funny enough, the answer is target risk. Scoping should not have a direct and significant impact on a budget, because scoping is listing out what we want to assess. Target risk is the one that will cost more because it takes more time to figure out. It takes more time to figure out the risk of a device, of an asset, by doing things like vulnerability scans and looking at the reports and figuring out the risk level, like looking at the CVSS scores and verifying that those scores are accurate for whatever vulnerabilities are found. along with the cost that it would take to correct said risk. So there's more weight, there's more things to do on risk versus just listing out what we want to be scanned, to be checked. So yes, it is target risk. Oh, I do not care. Whoops. Here's another question. And I accidentally clicked this, but give you a moment to read it. Yes, yes, everything cybersecurity related is all about risk. That is our bread and butter, is risk. A tester has determined that null sessions are enabled on a domain controller. Uh-oh. Which of the following can be performed to leverage this vulnerability? Null sessions are enabled on a domain controller. Never tried. Well, break down the question. What is a null session? And how does that work on a domain controller? We have a vote for number 2 right now. What is a null session? How does that work with a domain controller? That information will help you in answering this question. Which of the following can be performed to leverage those null sessions? That is correct. A null session does occur when you log into a system with no username or password. So, using that information, logging into a system with no username or password, which of these 4 is the way to leverage that vulnerability? Can we leverage passing the hash to relay credentials in order to utilize these null sessions? Can we do session hijacking to impersonate a system account in order to leverage or utilize the null sessions? Can we do brute forcing into the host or RID cycling? I still see a vote for number 2. Only one person thinking it's number 2. Remember to stay within the question. Do not add anything further to the scenario that they give you. So don't extrapolate just because of one thing, therefore another. You have to stay within this question. So don't add more to the scenario world. I got a 2 votes for number 4. The answer is actually number 2. Because null sessions are enabled, which means you can log in into a system with no username or password, it should be easy to impersonate a system account who has highest privileges. Again, don't think beyond the scenario that they give you. Don't start adding things into the question that is not listed there. In this world, we only have a domain controller, and we found out that it can do null sessions. That's it. There's nothing else in that question, nothing else in that scenario. System accounts. Right. System account for Windows, it's just system. Oh, I'm going to need to zoom out a bit. A lot of it. In order to show you the full thing. If you're unable to read this, just let me know. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to skip it. I'd rather do ones that you guys can see. Let's do this one. We don't need names. We don't have to enumerate for system accounts like system. You should enumerate for those types of accounts. Well, if you're able to determine something similar, or finding that a domain controller accepts null accounts, then you know it'll take system just fine. So here's another question for you. A pen tester has successfully deployed an evil twin and is starting to see some victim traffic. Uh-oh. The next step the pen tester wants to take is to capture all victim web traffic unencrypted. Which of the following would best meet this goal? Again, this is a one answer question. And we're looking for the best answer for capturing victim web traffic unencrypted. Remember, we're looking for the best. Different websites do have different certs. So which is the best? Well, we're talking about web traffic. So this is HTTPS traffic. Again, stay within the question itself, within the scenario of the question. Don't begin extrapolating more information out of this. Don't add more to the world. How could a pen tester best capture web traffic, HTTPS traffic, unencrypted? And I see one person sticking with number 4. Any other votes or further debate? So think about the handshake that happens with HTTPS. Does user credentials play a part in establishing an HTTPS connection? Can we do this? Can we get unencrypted traffic by implementing a certificate authority attack? By impersonating a trusted CA? Can we get unencrypted traffic by being a man in the middle? Or can we get unencrypted traffic by downgrading? All right, I got to vote for 4 and I got to vote for 3. The answer is number 4. So it is not this one because user credentials are passed after an HTTPS session has been set. Right? That happens at the very beginning when a server and a client begin communicating with each other. After DNS, they establish that they can both do HTTPS, and the browser and server pick what encryption they're going to use and switch over to that and begin communicating after that. Impersonated a trusted CA is difficult because you would have a lot of CAs to impersonate. Now, not only would you have to be able to respond like a intermediate CA and any other bridge CAs and whatnot, so that's just too hard. That's not the best way. A man-in-the-middle attack would not work because, again, you have 2 devices that are going to establish an encrypted tunnel between browser and server. So even if you are in the middle, you won't be able to see once the tunnel is made. But downgrading would be the way to see, the best way to see the web traffic unencrypted. If you are doubtful about this one being the right answer, I highly suggest running Wireshark next time you go to an HTTPS enabled site and see if you are able to capture the public-private keys. If you are able to do that, then you have much more of a leg to stand on for this one. But the correct answer is to downgrade them. Here is another question. Yes, HTTPS does stop man in the middle. So again, I would, if you are doubting that question, I would suggest I also just running Wireshark and see it for yourself. That's where the hands-on experience will help you in answering these questions. So I see 2 votes for number 2. There's a suspicious request for something after the PHP. What about this makes you believe it is directory transversal? Why would it not be remote file inclusion? Why would it not be user enumeration? Why would it not be cross-site scripting? I'll give you a little help. It's not directory transversal or remote file inclusion. This quiz will be submitted in 1 minute. Thank you, Canvas. Yeah, it's not 2 or 3. since the timer is about to end, it's cross-site scripting. Remember what cross-site scripting looks like? In the Web Security Academy. Yeah, we're not enumerating users. We're looking at a file. And we're not traversing the directory. It's cross-site scripting. Cool. I will keep doing this. I know it's a tricky one. We'll keep doing this all the way to the end of the semester. Again, feel free to take the quiz as many times as you want. There shouldn't be a restriction on it. It's this one right here at the very bottom of the entire course. So the next couple of weeks, I'll continue to go to this section, click on it, and go through the preview and do a few. Feel free to do it on your own. Again, you should have an unlimited amount of tries, and it should show you 40 questions total. There is a pool big enough that you'll get a number of questions. And if you get stuck on any, we'll review them. But that's what we'll do the next couple of weeks as you do your part in not only taking that, but also getting through the Pen Test Plus learning path from TryHackMe. And again, all of this is in preparation so that you can take and pass, not only take and pass the Security Plus exam, but also be ready for the world of work. Because anybody can sit there and just try to remember a bunch of information and regurgitate it in the test and get it. It's a whole nother thing to be able to use that knowledge in the real world. And that's what this whole class has been. That's why it's so rigorous, because it's all about real world prep over just, hey, let's study for this test, take it and pass it. Now, this is much more long-term. And it will bring you more benefit longer term than just remembering questions for a test. So we'll be back again next Monday to do this again. And with that, I will stop the stream.